It feels so overwhelming. I mean, it's 4 races in 4 days in Orlando, Florida, which probably is not where you live. So it involves travel. You may be bringing family with you. You may be bringing children with you. And there's just so much to coordinate and so much logistics and so many questions and so many things to figure out before you do your Dopey Challenge. Now, I've already created several videos, including why I will never do the Dopey Challenge again, a video talking about registration, training, the expo. So if you have expo questions, definitely go there. We'll do like a real brief overview in this video, but definitely make sure you watch that video if you have more expo questions. And I've also done a video where I talk about the races in particular in a great amount of detail. So all those videos are going to be linked below. So if that's actually what you're looking for, go check out one of those. But this is really an overview of everything that I really wish I had known going into the Dopey Challenge weekend. First off, where to stay. Now, if you get into any of the Run Disney groups or anything like that on Facebook, chances are good that you're going to feel like everybody's staying on property. And I would definitely say the majority of people do stay on property, which may make it feel a little intimidating if you stay off property because you feel like I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. Well, I can tell you we did stay off property, which means we did have to park at Epcot, and we saw a lot of other people who were also driving into Epcot. So if you feel like it's better for you and potentially the people you're traveling with for you to stay off property, I would highly recommend it. Now, I would also say I would get a rental car if you're staying off property. I cannot vouch for the reliability of Ubers at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. Now, the reasons why we stayed off property in particular was that we wanted to have 2 bathrooms because we had 2 runners, and I do highly recommend that because when you're getting up at 2:30 in the morning, in order to be able to leave at 3 a.m. in the morning, it's nice to not have to share a bathroom. Another thing that was really important to us is we wanted to be able to have a kitchen so we could eat the food that we were used to eating, which is not great. It's chicken and broccoli and eggs and beef, and basically a ton of protein is what we eat. And that may not be your jam, that may not be what you do, and that's okay. But having your own kitchen means you have control over your food. The third really nice reason for staying off property is that you can get a washer and dryer. Now, I know a lot of people who are staying on property or don't have access to a washer and dryer. What they will do is they will take their outfits for each day and they'll pack them in a gallon Ziploc bag. And then after they race, they just put the dirty clothes back in the gallon Ziploc bag and deal with it when they get home. To be fair, I actually used the gallon Ziploc method because I thought it was really helpful for organizing my clothes, and I wanted to make sure that I had everything in my carry-on because you know I'm not putting my shoes or my running outfits in my checked bag. But it was really nice to not come home to like gallon Ziploc bags full of nasty, sweaty running clothes. And I will say in 2025, for the 5K and the 10K, it was 40 degrees at start. So I ended up wearing my fleece line leggings and I ended up wearing my really heavy running coat both days. Now, since it was 40 degrees and it was only a 5K, I wouldn't say it got all that sweaty, and I probably could have gotten away with not washing it, but being able to wash it and dry it, have everything ready for the next day, definitely made the 10K feel a lot better. And the last perk of staying off property, which I did not realize beforehand, was having a whirlpool tub. So I took a bath every single night with Epsom salts, which I think really helped my body. And that was a perk that came with the hotel that we were staying at that I didn't even know about. Now, we stayed at the Sheraton Vistana Villages on iDrive, and we got a 2-bedroom condo because we wanted those 2 bathrooms. So my husband had his own bathroom, and then the 2nd bedroom we actually used to stage all of our running stuff. And when you're doing the Dopey, there is a lot of running stuff. Because not only do you have your shoes and you have your clothes, you have your throwaway clothes, you have your emergency blankets, you have your gloves, you have your hot hands, then you're gonna have your bibs. The list goes on and it adds up. Honestly, I don't really know how people do Dopey in like a regular hotel room. And see, here's another thing. One of the perks of staying on property, at least in 2025, is that you have that early admittance so you can get in a half hour early. which I do gotta admit is a super huge perk. However, how many mornings are you actually gonna be able to get in early? Because Wednesday you have the expo, the next 4 days you're racing. Are you really gonna be able to take advantage of those early morning hours anyway? And then there's driving into the races. Now, you do have to be a little careful because there will be road closures and you do want to be aware of them. I will say that Disney's great about putting signs out so that you can just follow the signs in order to get into the Epcot parking lot. But we did get there early. We did get there before 4 a.m. every single morning because of the road closures that did start at 4 a.m. The nice thing is you can hang out in your car and stay warm for as long as you want to. So you have a place that's dry and warm to hang out until you're ready to head to the corral. So if you are driving yourself, or even if you're staying on property and you're taking one of the buses, I highly recommend that you get to the race an hour and a half before race start. Now, my husband would say get to the Epcot parking lot an hour before race start. I just like having a little bit of time. So we would actually walk in, and we actually had a team meeting every morning because we were running with Team Hope Story, which is an amazing organization to support. If you are thinking about doing a charity bib option, I cannot recommend Hope Story enough. They are fantastic people and they have an amazing mission. They believe that every mother should be congratulated on the birth of her child, and the birth of every child should be celebrated, and doctors should be educated, particularly regarding Down syndrome. It's a very small organization, but they have a lot of energy. And it's really neat to see how the money you're raising is directly contributing to this organization. So just the year that we've been with them and watched their impact continue to expand, it has been fantastic. And I will tell you that if I were to run again with Disney, I guarantee you I would just be calling them up and being like, hey, can you get me a bib for this race? Because it was such a great experience and it's such a great organization. We had a team meeting at 3:45 each morning, or an hour and 15 minutes before race start. Now, the team meeting was really short, and it was really fun to see the other runners out there and get a chance to get to know them a little bit. So I definitely would recommend, if you're running with a charity and they do a team meeting, definitely go ahead and show up for that. It is super fun. And then from there, what we would do is we would go over, we would take some pictures with the characters that are available there. They do have some food trucks, and there's a coffee truck, a Joffrey's truck out there. So you can do all of that stuff, and then you can head into the corrals. Now, how early do you want to get into the corrals? Really depends on how close to the front of the corral you want to be. The corrals open between 45 minutes and an hour before race start. And if you get there during that time, you're going to be towards the front of the corral. So we always got there probably about 45 minutes before race start. And I would say we were definitely in the first quarter of the corral. Now, some people may say, hey, I'd rather hang out in my car longer, or I'd rather hang out undercover if it's raining for longer and be at the back of the corral so I don't have to stand there for as long. Now, you will be standing around in the corral for a while, or the chute to go in and start your race. So I highly recommend Mylar blankets. I highly recommend throwaway gloves, or at least socks for your hands. And I highly recommend some hot hands, and bring a couple extra so you can toss them in your pockets too if it's a really cold weekend. I'll put a link below for the products that we used that we thought were really good. Now, do you need to bring fuel or water? This is kind of a contested conversation amongst the Run Disney group. And here's what I would say. If you train with the fuel that's going to be available on course, then you do not need to bring anything with you. For the marathon, there was numerous water stops. They also had Powerade. That's what they had in 2025. There was 2 banana stops, which were fantastic. And then there was 2 sport bean stops. So if those are the things that you're using during your training, then I don't see any need for you to bring anything, because I guarantee you, you will be well hydrated during the entire race. However, for us, we did not train on sport beans or Powerade, so I did bring my Element with me, which is what I used, as well as my granola bars. What I really want to make clear is it's really important that you have the fuel that you've been training with, and you don't want to change your fuel on race day. So make sure that you have what you've trained with. Now, if you train with what's on course, then you won't need anything more. I feel pretty confident in that. However, if you've trained with something else, then you want to make sure to bring something that's going to work for you. Now, are you a porta potty type of person, or are you one who's just like not into that? I will say that there are lots of porta potties everywhere from when you enter the Epcot parking lot until you get into the corrals. But if you can wait just a little bit, you're about to be running through the parks and the bathrooms are open. So if you're not a porta potty kind of person, guarantee you there's going to be plenty of bathrooms available on your course. Just make sure you hit one before you leave the park. Now, from parking your car to getting into the corrals is going to be about a 30-minute walk. You have to go through security, you need to walk through the reunion area. I personally would recommend getting some photos, and then you're going to be walking some more until you get into the corral, and then you're going to be walking some more until you reach the end of where all the people are. Then once your corral is released, you'll go into this chute and you'll line up. And each race is a different amount of people that they'll send off in each wave. So it's not like your entire corral is going to go at the same time. And we did have one morning, it was the 10K morning, when they actually put the white rope right in front of us. But that was actually kind of cool because we got to get that start line photo. Now, don't worry, absolutely everybody gets sent off with some fireworks, so that's super fun. No matter what, you will get fireworks. I would highly recommend actually the wave before you're actually leaving to get a picture of the fireworks, and then that way when your fireworks actually go off, you can run across that start line. Now, what do you do if you're in the corrals for like 45 minutes to potentially an hour and a half, right? Because you're in the corrals and then you're going through the chute and you're waiting for everybody else to go. That can be a lot of time that you're standing there. Well, they do have 2 MCs which do some playful banter. They interview some people and things like that. So that's super fun to get to see some of the Run Disney community. And they have a DJ who's playing music. So you may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be there forever. And yeah, you probably are gonna be there for quite some time. I will say that time actually goes pretty quickly when you're there. They have a pretty good sound system and these huge TV screens up, so you get to watch like previews from movies that are coming and things like that. And really, it's pretty easy to see and hear everything from every corral except for Corral C. So Run Disney, if you could help our friends out in Corral C, which that was us 2 mornings. Now you want to make sure before you get into the corral that you have your bib on and it is visible. Now this can be a challenge if you're wearing multiple layers. Now if you're wearing throwaway layers that you're just going to throw away right at the start line, you can just kind of flash your bib and they'll let you through. They're very familiar with that. The challenge we had was that on marathon morning, it was 46 degrees at the start, but 56 degrees at the finish, which meant we were not going to be staying in our layers the whole entire time. I had planned on using bibbers to attach my bib to my shirt, but as it turned out, I knew I was going to be running for a while in my jacket. So what I ended up doing was actually attaching my number to my running belt, which I don't usually do, but needed to do in this case. And then later on in the race, once I took my jacket off, I stopped for a minute and I put it actually on my shirt. But you may not be, and you may be like, nope, I really want to run this marathon. I don't want to be worried about anything like that. In that case, I would recommend either a running belt or putting it on your pants or something that you know you're going to keep on and it's going to be visible for the entirety of the race. Because remember, those PhotoPass photographers are out there, and if they can't see your bib number, they can't put your photos into your PhotoPass. And about those PhotoPass photographers, they are fast. They really do a good job of trying to get pictures of everybody. And I will say in the half marathon and the marathon, when people are more spread out, we got a ton of really great photos. Now during the 5K, yeah, no, not very many, but that's not the PhotoPass photographer's fault. It really is the fact that there are these things called PhotoPass hogs. And so there are people who will run directly in front of the PhotoPass photographer to make sure that they get their picture. However, then everybody behind them misses out. So it's okay to try to find your slot, but just make sure you understand the PhotoPass photographer is going to be looking from the middle to the side because there's 2 of them. There's 1 on each side. So they're going to scan middle to side side, middle to side, in order to try to get as many individual pictures as possible. Now, I guarantee you during the weekend, if you're a friendly type of person, you're gonna meet some friends. So we met Erin, who is my new running friend, standing in line to pick up our bibs and our t-shirts, which was super fun because as it turned out, we were in line for an hour and a half. So we really had a good time talking to Erin and getting to know her. She was doing the Dopey and she was there by herself. At least for the running part, she was by herself. And so it was really fun getting to know her and following up with her during the weekend to see how her races went and all of that stuff. You'll definitely meet new people and make new friends if you want to. So just be chatty and you may find a new running buddy. Now, I have done a video specifically talking about each particular race, so we'll drop a link to that here. However, I am going to give you some really general things because I think it's important to know about how each of the races is different. The 5K and the 10K, you do not need to provide a proof of time, which means you get to put in your best guess as to how long that's going to take. Now, my husband and I did put in our best guess, and we put in a pretty accurate one in all honesty, and that landed us in Corral D. And what I can tell you is that there was a lot of people in Corral A, B, and C who were not telling the truth. Now, friends, they were not telling you the truth. So if you are before your proof of time cutoff, you might want to consider that when putting down your time for the 5K and the 10K. Now, the 5K is untimed, and Disney promotes this as a really family fun environment, which is super awesome. And it's so great because there's a lot of people who wouldn't usually do a race who are out there, which is fantastic. And I fully support all of you. It is so cool to see, grandmas walking with their grandchildren and just these multi-generational events. And it is great. And people who would not take on a challenge like this normally. The other side of that, though, is that race etiquette tends to go out the window. And you are spending most of your time inside Epcot, which means there's a lot of choke points. If you are actually hoping to run the entire 5K, I'd just like to caution you, don't put yourself at risk of injury. You have 3 days more of running to do. So be careful as you're dodging and weaving, and make sure that you're safe for yourself as well as those around you. Our plan was that we were going to walk if we could not get past somebody in a reasonable fashion. We were not going to run up on grass or anything like that because we were concerned about turning an ankle or just a simple injury that could really sideline us for the weekend. Now, we didn't end up needing to do that because we did do a successful dodge and weave. However, I definitely believe that that would have been a good plan had we needed to implement it. Now, for the 10K, you still do have that issue of not requiring a proof of time. However, there is more open road. And when we did it, the open road was at the beginning. So at the start line, you went and turned left, and you had some time on the open road, which gave us a chance to catch up to more of our race group and the people who were running at about the same pace as us before we got into Epcot and more of those checkpoints. It definitely made for a better experience and a better race for us. One thing that you do need to be aware of is that many of the runners do use the Galloway method, and that may actually be what you're using to train with, which is a walk-run method. So a lot of the Galloway runners are really great about notifying you by throwing their arm up in the air that they are going to start walking. But sometimes there's the issue that they do that right in front of you. So when you're running that 5K and 10K, you have more people kind of packed in together like sardines. You don't have a ton of time to spread out. That can be really challenging. And if you are a Galloway runner, let me ask that you just pull over to the right. Appreciate the arm. That's fantastic. But if you could pull over the right too, so that way I can dodge over to the left and just keep on going. Now, with a half marathon, you do require a proof of time in order to get into Corral A through C. We ended up in Corral C. Now, to be fair, my husband got put into Corral B with a proof of time of 1:59. I got put in Corral C with a time of 2:07. So my lovely husband came and stayed in Corral C with me, so I wasn't by myself. And with the half marathon, you're definitely going to see better race etiquette. So at this distance, people tend to have done more races before, at least the people who are in corrals A through C. which is helpful. Also, with the half marathon, obviously that extra distance is made up as you're running from Epcot to Magic Kingdom and then back. So there's a lot of open road. You really have a chance to kind of run your own race here with way less choke points. The half marathon is the first chance that you will have to have that castle pick. And the way they did it in 2025 is that you would run through the castle, you would run down the ramp to the left, and then you would turn left because we were going into Tomorrowland. However, you could also turn right and get a photo with one of the PhotoPass photographers. And let me tell you, you guys, in 2025, they had like 6 photographers there. They had a dot for you to stand on, and it was super simple and quick to get a photo. So unless you can actually see the balloon ladies, I would highly recommend getting a photo. All right, now day 4, the marathon. At this point, realize no matter what, no matter how good your training is, no matter how much protein you've been eating, no matter how careful you've been about running your races, chances are good you're gonna be tired. And I'm not just talking about physically tired, there's a mental tired that comes from the Dopey Challenge itself. I mean, it's 4 mornings in a row. It is a ton of people. It's a lot of stimulation. And if you're someone like me who's not used to a ton of stimulation, it's a lot of stimulation. And if you add on top of that the fact that you're going to the parks, which I do recommend, you're mentally overstimulated. Plus, in 2025, the marathon actually started at 4:30 in the morning, so we lost yet another half hour of sleep. Now, the nice thing is that by day 4, you figured out your jam. You figured out either what bus you need to take or what time you need to get to the Epcot parking lot. You figured out how to do character pictures. You figured out if you want to stop and get a coffee, which one's your favorite porta potty, and what time you want to get into the corrals. You figured out what gear you need to have, and you are ready to go for marathon morning. By that 4th morning, you really do feel like you're in a routine, and it does kind of make it easier, especially with that half hour earlier. Now, there is one change to the routine that only happens on marathon morning, and that is the fact that they put the numbers, so like the 48.6 or for the Goofy, the 39.3, and all the different distances, those big life-size numbers that they have at the expo where you get your bibs from Wednesday through Saturday, by Sunday morning magically show up outside of the marathon. And if you take your pictures before you go into your corral, there is barely any line. However, after the marathon is done, I can tell you that there's going to be a longer line. So it really depends if you're okay with your pictures in the dark or if you really want to have the light. I would highly recommend doing them in the morning, and I definitely do recommend getting pictures with those classic numbers. We just didn't want to wait at the expo because the lines were so long at the expo, and we wanted to get done with that because we were headed to a park. So with the marathon, you have the castle again, which is so amazing. You have long stretches of road as you're running from park to park. You have the dreaded Blizzard Beach parking lot, which for us wasn't that bad, but I think it was because it was like 55 degrees when we ran through there. I can imagine if it was 75 or 85 degrees, that would be a whole different experience. So here's how it went down in 2025. For Everest, you could ride through the lightning lane from 7:30 to 8. And from what I can tell, at 8 o'clock, you had to get into the regular standby line. We ran by at 8:10. The regular standby line was 20 minutes. And we decided not to wait after talking to a cast member who said, yes, I think it will actually be 20 minutes. Now, my friend Erin was a little bit behind us. When she got there, she said the wait time was 25 minutes, and it didn't end up taking 25 minutes. And she did ride Everest. That's going to be your call. Now, we did ride Rock and Roller Coaster, which was super fun. And that was at probably about 9:45 a.m. That's with a park open of 9 a.m., early morning hours of 8:30 a.m. What we did is we asked a cast member who was on course if we could go ride it, and she said, yes, of course, you can use the lightning lane. So then we went up to the cast member at the ride and said we were told we could use the lightning lane, and they were like, yes, of course, and then just sent us through. I do know that we did run right by Tower of Terror, and I heard afterwards on the Facebook pages that people did ride Tower of Terror and that they were able to get through the lightning lane. But I'm not sure exactly what time, if that lightning lane option cut off for Tower of Terror or not. And after each race, there's PhotoPass photographers that will take a picture of you with your medal, which is super fun, especially after the marathon, because at that point you'll have your marathon, you'll have your Goofy, and you'll have your Dopey. So it is really fun to get those medal pics while you're still reveling from finishing your marathon. But Monday is the big day. That's when everybody goes to Magic Kingdom and takes their medal pics, which is super fun to see everybody in their gear with their medals, taking pictures, and you're all celebrating together, which is super fun. I highly recommend. However, I do want to let you know that I did hear that in the late morning, early afternoon, it was a 2-hour wait to get pictures with a PhotoPass photographer. So we had booked a Capture Your Moment session for 9:45 a.m. That's what the park opened at 9 a.m. So we could get all of our pictures separately and together with the least amount of crowd possible in the background. I mean, obviously it's Disney World. There's always going to be people. And for the price, I felt like it was really worth it for the number of photos we got. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is one of the big questions, which is, can you do the parks on the days that you're running? And there's a lot of controversy about this in the Run Disney community. So I understand that this is just my opinion. This is what we did, and this is what worked for us. But what I have figured out, this is what I believe to be true. If you are a runner, then walking around the parks is great because it's a different use of those muscles. So it doesn't tire out your muscles in exactly the same way. However, if you are a walker, or a primary walker at least, I could see where it might be a challenge to walk around the parks for an extra 10,000 steps when you've just done something like a 5K or a 10K. So it's really important to know, A, how you're going to run or walk your race, and B, what is your body used to / what can it tolerate? Because you certainly don't want to mess up these races that you've been training for so long for by going to the parks. In our case, though, I felt like going to the parks really helped improve the race experience because it kept us loose. So for us, what we did, we went to Animal Kingdom after the expo. So we knew that the expo was going to take us quite some time, and it ended up taking us 4 hours. And that, I would say, is kind of the speedy route for doing it for Wednesday morning. So we went to Animal Kingdom because we knew that had the least amount of things that we wanted to do. And we did use Lightning Lane multi-pass and single pass to make sure that we could get all of those things done. And on that note, I just want to say, I'm not the expert on multi-pass. I would definitely recommend, if you're looking to understand more about all of that, I would check out Mammoth Club on YouTube. They are amazing. Molly makes fantastic videos, and she's just a super fun person. Shout out to Molly, and if I ever get a chance to meet you, that would be amazing. But they have so much great information and really helped me to be able to plan my time while I was in the parks. So we were able to get everything we wanted to done in Animal Kingdom in the afternoon after the expo. Now, after the 5K, we actually went back to Epcot. And this was a key decision because we went back to Epcot after going to the condo, taking a shower, having breakfast. We went back to Epcot because it was 5K morning. You see, Epcot has the most road closures because that's where you start and finish the race. And each day, those road closures are going to last longer because the race is going to last longer. So if you want to go to Epcot, I would either do it on your expo day or your 5K day. Now, Studios is just more difficult because there's more bangers in the park and it's harder to do the lightning lanes. And even if you fiddle faddle and do all that stuff, it's still more challenging and took more time. That was definitely the time we spent the most in the park. But it was also the time where we had the most downtime in the park. So we'd go see a show or we'd grab a snack, and we really kind of cruised through that time. Whereas the other parks, I would say we were more active and busy and walking around. So although Studios was the longest day we were in the park, which was 9 hours, it was also filled with the most sitting while we were in any of the parks. And while we were there in Studios, just a side note, they were doing single rider on Rise of the Resistance, and we did actually try it. because we had some downtime. And again, we had a super great time because we met people in line, one in front of us who had run a marathon before, mother and daughter behind us who were running the half marathon. So we got to talk to some really great and amazing people. I will say the single rider line took us 60 minutes. And at the time that we got in line, the regular line was 75. And the cast members will not tell you how long that single rider line is because one, they really don't know, right? Because it depends how many single riders are needed per car. But two, they just don't track it. Now, we did not go to a park after the half marathon. We were not sleeping well while we were out in Orlando. We also had not planned on going to a park after the half marathon. We figured at that point we would find somewhere to walk around. We ended up going to Celebration, Florida and walking around there. We thought maybe we might go to downtown Disney, but especially with how tired we were, we didn't want to do too much knowing that the marathon was the next day. And I think that that was definitely a good call. And then after the marathon, it was off to Magic Kingdom. I very, very, very highly recommend going to one of the parks after the marathon because you do need to keep moving. Now, you may crash out early, so you may not be able to stay that late. We crashed out about 9:30 that night that we were like, nope, we're done. The park was open till 10 and we were like, we cannot. We have to walk and we have to get out of here now because we were so tired at that point. Apparently, between running the marathon and walking that day, we did 40 miles. So, I mean, that makes sense. But I would highly recommend getting up and getting walking. Now, if you're not going to be able to make it for Medal Monday, maybe you're flying out early Monday morning, I would go to Magic Kingdom and get those medal pictures in front of the castle. Definitely saw a lot of people out there doing that, as well as people walking around with their medals all day long. Alrighty, friends, that's a wrap. Dopey is done. That is everything that I can think of to tell you, but I would love to hear your questions. Is there anything that you've been wondering and you have not been able to find information somewhere about running the Dopey Challenge? Because I'd love to make a video just for you. So drop your comments below. Now, if you are a runner, I would love for you to subscribe to our channel, Physical Therapy for Everybody, because we do put a lot of information for runners and people who are suffering with acute injuries, as well as those who have more chronic pain. So that's it. It's Dr. Amy out, and Dopey is done.